If you've traveled to the Philippines or live in the Philippines or have Filipino friends, which I'm pretty sure you do, there are three kings to the breakfast game: Tapa, Tocino, and Longganisa. Let's get to it. I'm pretty sure if you look at the total world population that most of the people on Earth actually live in Asia. And most Asian countries, if not all, have savory breakfasts. So why, when we talk about breakfast, do we think pancakes, waffles, golden syrup, and cereal? It's because I think that America is so central in pop culture. So when we watch movies, which a lot of the times are American movies or Western movies, we see these kind of sweet breakfasts being put in front of our favorite actors and actresses. And by de facto, as globalization happens, these breakfasts then cross borders onto our plates. But if you've traveled to Asia, you'll see that savory breakfasts are still king. So as I said, we're gonna make three very popular Filipino breakfasts today in my way. This is my version, please don't get mad at me. We're gonna make a tapa, a tocino, and a longanisa. The first one I'm gonna show you is tapa. Tapa is usually beef, but you can also find deer. You can also find lots of different kinds of animals. Horses sometimes are turned into tapa. Originally, they're pieces of like kind of air-dried or sun-dried beef, and then those are refried. So I'm gonna try to mimic that in the technique that I'm gonna show you today. So this is like a dry tapa version, but you can also make a very kind of sweet and saucy tapa version if you prefer that.
So all of these dishes will have to be started at least 12 hours before you plan on cooking them. The very first thing we need to do is prepare a bunch of garlic. We use so much garlic in the Philippines that when I first started cooking when I was 8, I thought it had to be in every dish, kind of like salt. For our beef, I'm going to be using a sirloin. I like to keep some fat, but not all of it. Slice these into really thin 3-inch long slices. If they break up a little, no problem. That's part of the adventure. If you aren't able to get them very thin, you can also pound them out a little. In a bowl, place your beef with 3 heaped tablespoons of minced garlic, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of vinegar, black pepper, and about 1 teaspoon of salt. The next day, spread your marinated beef on a rack, and this goes into the oven as low as you can get it. Mine averaged at around 50 degrees. All this will stay in the oven for about 2 hours. The idea here is to dry these out a little while making sure that they don't become jerky. Make sure to flip them around after 1 hour. Once out, you'll be able to tell if they are ready to go. Cool them out for about 10 minutes. Get a pan out on medium heat. Heat up a couple of tablespoons of oil and add in your tapa. At this point, it's pretty much almost cooked, so all you're looking to do is give it some crispy edges and get it nice and fried. Should take you about 5 to 10 minutes. You want to bring out some of that caramelization from the little sugar we put in there, and also render out the fat as well, keeping a delicate balance between chew and having something crispy in there.
Next, we have tocino, which is absolutely beautiful, one of my favorites. Usually they add a lot of red coloring, so I don't know why, but you know, it's like hot dogs, red hot dogs. I guess it makes it look more appetizing. I'm gonna show you how to make it today without that red coloring, but we're gonna use a little bit of annatto just to give us something closer to that tinge.
We're going to start with some pork shoulder or pork butt. Remove the skin, keep most of the fat, and just slice it into fairly thin strips. In a bowl, mix together 1 cup of brown sugar. Yes, this is a very sweet dish. 1/3 cup of pineapple juice. This is going to help tenderize the meat. 1 tablespoon of paprika. 1/4 cup of rice vinegar. 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. 2 heaped tablespoons of garlic, and 1 tablespoon of salt. Mix all this together and then finish it off with 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. For our frying oil, we're just going to make a very basic annatto oil. Add some annatto seeds into a pan, cover them with canola oil, wait for the oil to bubble, turn off the fire, and let this sit for 30 minutes before straining. Take your pork out of the fridge and you're pretty much good to go. So remember, this dish has a lot of sugar, so you need to be aware of that when you're cooking it to make sure it doesn't burn too much. Tocino is a dish that lives on the edge. It's really all about excess, and it's always right in between of being too salty or too sweet, but always very sticky. I said that this was breakfast. I never said that this was healthy. I like to start my oil on a medium heat, adding my pork and just looking to cook it gently first. After about 6 minutes, you can flip them around to the other side for about 5 to 6 minutes again. You'll start seeing the fat render out and your pork should start getting some char on it. At this point, just start flipping around every piece each time it looks like it needs it. Now remember, most of the marinade actually has the sugar and the cornstarch, so at this point you can add it back in. It'll help just caramelize everything and get everything nice and thick. This is gonna simmer just for about 3 to 5 minutes. When things look sticky, you're good to go.
And finally, the Longganisa. I think it's one of those sausages that actually has more garlic than it has meat. And that's why it's so addicting. So I'm gonna show you how to make it today without the casing, because sometimes casing can be quite difficult to find. So this is what you'd call the Longganisa hubad.
Break apart some ground pork and just add all the garlic you have left into that bowl. Crack in some black pepper, 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar, 1 tablespoon of salt, 1/4 cup of cornstarch, 1 tablespoon of paprika, a half cup of brown sugar. Get some parchment paper out and make small rectangles out of it. Roll the meat in between your fingers and your hands and form that into a sausage shape, and then just place that into a Tupperware. This will really help hold the shape of the Longganisa when you cook it the next day. Get a pan out on medium heat, add in some of our annatto oil. You don't have to, I just wanted to add a little more color. Cook them for 5 minutes on one side and then flip them around and add some water to your pan. This will help cook them and make sure that your sugar doesn't burn. Let that simmer away until the liquid evaporates and then flip them around again. This should take about 10 minutes. Same with the Tocino, you're not looking to just cook the pork through. You really want to develop some sort of texture and just an amazing color. So you'll probably cook this down for another 5 to 10 minutes, flipping them around, and you'll know when they are ready, well, when they look awesome. Now these are all going to be served as silogs, so our proteins plus rice plus eggs. You know how in hotels they offer a continental breakfast and give you a choice of eggs, however you like them, different kinds of breads, and some cold cuts or, I don't know, smoked salmon? Well, this is our version of that. You can do your eggs however you want them, but personally when I think Filipino breakfast, I think of a runny yolk and a crispy burnt edged egg. For this, get your oil hot, really hot in a pan. Place in your egg, bring down that heat to medium, and then just cook it until your desired doneness. Make sure to spoon some of your hot oil on the egg, kind of like how when you baste steak with butter. The last thing we need to tie all of this together is a simple dipping sauce to cut through all that fat. So some coconut vinegar, crushed garlic, some chopped up bird's eye chilies, and some cracked black pepper all go into these little dipping bowls. Absolute perfection. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but this for me is pure happiness. The Tapa, let's try it out. Should be nice and tender, but still has a little bit of chew. And that fat should be just nice and poppy, if you know what I mean. Now that's the texture you want. So good. Got some Longganisa. Look at that. Perfectly cooked inside. And the true mark of a great Longganisa is that when you burp 2 hours later, is that you still smell the garlic. As gross as that might sound. But it's called the Longganisa burp. It's a thing. Look it up. I personally like the Longganisa with the skin better, but I know sometimes it is hard to find proper hog casings depending on where you are. So a skinless version is something you can do really quickly. But if you do have the opportunity, put this same mix into a skin, perfect. And then my personal favorite growing up, Tocino. I've actually tasted this a couple times while cooking it. I'm not gonna lie. So tender, extremely sweet, but that's what a Tocino is supposed to taste like. Now I gotta call everyone for breakfast. I can't eat this myself.